Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
Hello and welcome to today's class. Today we'll be talking about a topic captioned quadratic equations. Quadratic equations. Okay. In quadratic equations, we'll be discussing equations that have the highest power of 2. Okay, the highest index power of 2. Alright, such equations of the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, the highest index power of 2 is seen on the first part of the equation. They could as well be written as in the form of this ax plus bx squared plus c, or rather I could say this is our bx plus ax squared plus c. Okay, so all you need to do is to arrange them. Remember, it is not yet an equation until there is an equality sign 0. Okay, it is not yet an equation until you have this equality sign at the end. Okay, it is just an algebraic expression if you have it in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, you can call this an algebraic expression. But for it to be an equation, it must be ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. Okay, this makes it an equation. Okay, and so quadratic equation, will be discussing the topic of by factorization. But before we talk about factorization, before we talk about by factorization, we'll first refresh your memory on what we said about the factorizing and the difference of two squares. Okay, I think if you go to the topic we discussed previously, titled simple equations, you will get yourself refreshed about what we said about factorization of quadratic equations. Okay, and then quadratic equations and what we said about difference of squares. Okay, so that we don't waste much time in this class. Alright, I said previously that today we'll be talking about quadratic equations, and we'll be discussing on solutions of quadratic equations by factorization. I have previously defined quadratic equations as equations where you have the highest index power to be equal to 2, or the highest power of x is equal to 2. There are other forms of equations. There are cubic equations. There, the highest index power of x is 3. Okay, and there are quadratic equations. There are cubic equations, highest power of 3. There are quadratic equations, highest power of 4. There are highest power of 5 equations too, and all these make up what we call the polynomials. Okay, and so we will solve by examples. But before we start, let me give you these steps that can help you in computing your factorization method. Number 1 step says that when you are given an equation, multiply the first term and the last term. Apply the first term and the last term. Okay, in the case of our quadratic equations, you're saying you multiply ax squared times what? C. Alright. Step 2 says you have to determine the factors of the constants. You have to determine the factors of the constants such that that when you add or subtract them, when you add or you subtract them, okay, you will have the value of bx. Okay, good. But when you multiply both factors, okay, you will have the value ax squared c. Okay, all we are saying here is that when you multiply them, you have the product of the first term and the last term, but when you add and subtract them, you have the product of the middle term, which is bx. And the number 3 step there is that the number 3 step states that you have to carry out arithmetic grouping when we have gotten to this step, or what we call factorization. Carry out arithmetic grouping, or you start to factorize. Okay, the number 4 says you should make subject of formula. Make subjects of formula. To determine the point values, so we can determine the exact values of the factorized factors. Okay, I would say to determine the point values. Alright, I think with these following simple steps, you can carry on your factorization. They are as easy as possible. So we'll go over quickly to the first example. And then apply these rules. Example 1, maybe we are told to factorize, to solve the following equations by factorization. Alright, marker. Solve the following. By factorization. Okay, and you are given x squared minus 6x plus 9 equal to 0. You are given 3x squared minus 11x minus 4 equal to 0. And you are given x squared minus 2x minus 8 to be equal to 0. Okay, so I'll be taking the solutions here. Solution number 1. We'll be using these examples too for other methods of solving quadratic equations, so that we will also be sure that they will give the same outcome. Okay, and so solution 1, you're given a squared minus 6x plus 9 equal to 0, and the first instruction says that you multiply the first and last term. A squared is the first term and the last term is 9. Okay, which states that you multiply ax times c. Okay, that's what we just did. And so this gives you 9x squared. And so we start to look for factors of 9, okay, such that when you multiply them, they will give you 6, and when you add or subtract them, sorry, when you multiply them, they gives you 9, but when you add and subtract them, they will give you 6. All right, so such factors could be minus 3 times 3 will give what? Plus 9. Okay, good. But when you add minus 3 plus minus 3, it gives you what? Minus 9. Okay, let me just put the x, gives you plus 9x squared. Okay, but minus 3 plus 3 will give you minus minus 6x. Okay, so you see, when you multiply minus 3 and minus 3, you have 9x squared. Okay, but when you multiply when you add and subtract them, you have minus 6, which is a minus bx. Okay, and a minus 6 is the middle number. So these two values can be as good as can be used to replace the middle value there. Okay, so we can write this as minus 3x minus 3x. Okay, we've replaced minus 6 with minus 3, and then plus 9 equal to 0. Okay, we start to group them, the first and the last term. All right, do not mind the minus sign outside, we will still justify it. Just look at what I'm doing carefully. For this bracket, you see that x is the common factor there. When you pick out x will remain 1 here, and minus 3 will come out here. So there's no need for picking out 3 again, because x is the only factor that can fall out of the bracket. It's the only common factor. So when you multiply back, x times x gives you x squared, x times minus 3 gives you minus 3x. So look at this bracket very carefully, because the manipulations I'm going to do here, you need to pay good attention for you to understand. If you observe in this bracket, there is a minus sign here. Okay, ordinarily it should have been inside. Okay, let me put it inside and make this a plus. Okay, because positive has no influence on computations. So how do we factorize out this particular bracket? We can do so if we are to bring out this minus sign outside the bracket. Okay, remember that 3 will now be positive, because minus times plus will still give us what? Minus. We get back to this. Okay, but 9 will change to become negative, so that when we multiply minus back into the bracket, so we have a minus times minus to give us plus. Okay, all I'm saying is that if you have the knowledge that minus times plus is minus, and then minus times minus is equal to plus, okay, so you should know that what can replace plus when minus is outside the bracket is minus, and what can replace minus when minus is outside the bracket is plus. Okay, equal to 0. And so the common factors here, we are not done. This is x minus 3. Okay, minus, so between 3 and 9 you can factor out 3, so that you have x minus 3, because if 3 multiplies back into the bracket, you have that 3 times x is 3x, 3 times 3 is 9, and so you see two factors are looking alike inside the bracket, so we choose one. We'll have to choose one of the brackets there. Right, so how do we go about this? I think there's a mix up somewhere. Okay, that's minus 3. Alright, there's no mix up. We'll continue. Okay, so we have it that all the factors here are minus 3, so we have to choose one, because when we factor out this, we have minus 3 and then one of these minus 3. Okay, equal to 0. All we did is to pick out the factors here, because you see minus 3 here, minus 3 here, and at the midpoint here you have minus 3 and minus 3. So over to the next slide, we will have it that x minus 3 is equal to 0, since they have the same factor, so that we can say that x is minus 3 is equal to 0. They're just the same thing. So at this point we can make x the subject of formula, so that you have x is equal to plus 3, because when minus crosses an equality sign, it becomes positive. So therefore x is equal to 3. All right. Okay, we'll take solution for the next example. Our solution 2, solution I, that's solution 2. Okay, we were given that 3x squared minus 11x minus 4 is equal to 0, and so we have to find the factors. So the first thing we do, we multiply the first term times the last term. It will give you minus 12x squared. We look for two numbers. When you multiply them, you will have minus 12x squared, but when you add them, you will have minus 11x. And so the two numbers that comes to my mind are 12x times 1x. Okay, so I can say minus 12x times 1x to give me minus 12x squared. Okay, and then minus 12x plus 1x to give me equal to minus 11x. All right, so we can easily replace 11x with these two factors, and so the next line follows that 3x squared, okay, and minus 2x minus 12x plus 1x, and then minus 4 is equal to 0. And so from this point you can as well write this as 3x squared minus 12x plus x minus 4 to be equal to 0. And so from this line it follows that you have 3x squared minus 12x plus x minus 4. I think that's okay, so no point for repetition. I just form my brackets at this point, okay, so that the common factors here are 3x, because I can bring out 3x comfortably from this, and then here remains x, sorry, not x squared, here remains x, and at this point we are left with 4, because 3x times x gives you 3x squared, and then 3x times 4 gives you 3 times 4 is 12, and then the x follows plus x minus 4. Okay, so how do we figure out what comes out of this bracket? There is a common factor to every value, and that common factor is 1. Okay, because when one multiplies a bracket, the bracket remains the same, so we just put 1 as a factor here, because one multiplying this bracket will not change anything. And so the factors we have here are 3x plus 1. Okay, you pick this value with this value, and then the common factors s minus 4 equal to 0. And so therefore we can say that 3x plus 1 is equal to 0, or that x minus 4 is equal to 0. And from this point we have that 3x plus 1 equal to 0, so that 3x will be equal to minus 1, and so that x itself will be equal to minus 1 over 3. Okay, and or we can say that x minus 4 is equal to 0, so that x 4 crosses the equality sign is equal to 4. So therefore x is either equal to 1 minus 1 over 3, or x is equal to 4. Alright, for the last example we have there, we have that solution 3. Solution 3, we have a squared plus 2x minus 8 is equal to 0. Okay, so when you do the same multiplication, you have a squared times minus 8, which gives you minus 8x squared. Right, so we start to look for values that could replace them, so that when you add or subtract you have to, and the first value that comes to my mind is 4 and minus 2. Okay, because I know 4x times minus 2x will give you minus 4x squared, but 4x minus 2x will give you 2x. Okay, so these two can comfortably replace 2x at this point, and so you can write this as x squared plus 4x minus 2x minus 8 equal to 0, and then you can put in the form of brackets. Okay, so at this point x can come outside the bracket, and so you have x plus 4. Okay, now before you factorize this, look at the signs very well and know what happens. Had it been it were to be a positive sign at this point, okay, we wouldn't be bothered, but since it's a negative sign, okay, remember this bracket moves more than this, it moves to this point. Okay, so now the problem is what sign will be outside. Okay, assuming we factorize the negative sign, we'll bring out the negative sign. Okay, here we'll be left with 2x. Okay, but here we'll be left with positive. Okay, why? Because if you factorize a negative sign, the signs of other factors will change to positive. You see, 2 is now positive, because when a negative sign multiplies a positive sign, it remains what? Negative. But if you factorize a positive sign, okay, since a positive sign has no effect on negative terms, okay, the values will remain the same. Okay, why we are changing this is because the only way to get back to the negativity when negative multiplies the bracket is to make the other values positive. Okay, that's why, if you remember, we said that the following in your previous studies. Okay, so this is just to tell you that signs as well can be factorized. Okay, signs as well can be factorized. All right, all equal to 0. I just hope you understood what I just said. So we go ahead to factorize. We have x plus 4, and then negative of 2x plus 8. All right, so at this point x plus 4 minus 2 can come outside this bracket, and so you have x left here, and then 4, because when 2 goes back you have 2 times x, 2x, 2 times 4, 8. And so at this point, I hope I'm not omitting my zeros. All right, so I can pick 2 factors. You see, these 2 factors are the same, so I can pick x minus 2, and then I can pick x plus 4. All right, both equal to 0. This simply implies that x minus 2 is equal to 0, or x plus 4 is equal to 0, and then we can solve to get the point values. 0, x will be equal to 2 crosses the equality sign, you have positive 2. Okay, or we can say that x plus 4 is equal to 0, and then positive 4 crosses equality sign, then you have that x is equal to 4. So therefore x is either equal to 2 or x is equal to 4. Right, with this we've come to the end of the class on factorization, quadratic equations by factorization. Keep practicing and become better. Have a nice day.